Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody doing? Hello, my friends. Hello. I couldn't be bothered to put makeup on or look like I didn't come out of bed. Look, I was like I would like to look at this Oracle deck, and it's fun to look at this Oracle deck with other people. But at the same time, I'm not interested on my day off of putting makeup on or doing my hair. So, it is what it is. Um, Miss Jamie, do you think I should brighten this up a little bit? I lowered it down for yesterday's class, but I do want. Well, no, so it's hard. I can't judge. That's why I always ask Miss Jamie, because she is used to judging my light. So I trust her. I trust her thoughts on the coloration, but it looks a little bit dark on my hand. But I want the cards to stand out, so I guess it doesn't matter. Okay, I'll leave it. Poke me if it looks like it's too dark. Okay, hello. It just might be me and my friends doing a walkthrough. I just didn't want to mess around waiting, but I didn't want to do a whole production because, again, just trying to take it easy and relax. Those of you who like planning, I shall be going from this into a plan with me. I'm going to try to stay concise so this can be watched back. So yes, you know what, let me just do this real quick. I'm just gonna hit the whoops, no, wrong thing, cancel. Exposure, manual, auto. I just feel like it needs just a. I'll just do that for a second. Oh, that might be too much. We'll get to a card and we'll decide. Okay, I'm going to end this and then start another plan with me. I'm going to keep this the Book of the Dead. So, okay, I want to introduce this just to get going. And I also want to state, as I put in the description, this deck was sent to me for the purposes of review. It's important to tell people when that is the case. I am also going to tell you that I am very, very biased towards Zilla Conway's artwork. But this is a bias that doesn't come from necessarily a free deck, which is awesome, but it's a bias that I simply love her decks, and I've used them for quite extensively and a lot. And for a long time. So I will say, there's certain deck creators, like I love James Eads things. I just like everything he does. And it's like, sure, here's my wallet, go ahead and take my wallet. I've had Davids of Creation for a long time. I've absolutely loved it. I did a walkthrough a little while back of the multidimensional Devas. This has stayed out for me. I've been using this for listen and do ancestor readings. I've mostly been using it for listen and do ancestor readings. Really have been enjoying this one as well. And the Shimmering Veil Tarot, she has other tarots, but this Shimmering Veil Tarot is one of my favorite tarot decks. I use this deck so much for grief readings, for regular readings, for like the whole gamut. I just love this tarot deck. So it's one of my favorites. So I am definitely biased to her work, but also I've used her work a lot. I think what really speaks to me with her artwork is that her textures, I'm assuming that she uses, that she mostly paints in oil. Could be acrylic, but it seems like acrylic or oil because there's so much textures and brush strokes on them that I just love it. I also love the way she's always trying to paint things like devas, which are spirits or angelic type beings, or see, sort of these, otherworldly things with a very, two-dimensional or one-dimensional, what would you call a painting? If it's textured, is it two-dimensional? I don't know. But, she's trying to do this all with this medium. I'm so sorry. I should have done something with my hair. It's going to drive me bonkers. But she just does something amazing with her lights and her darks, and it just works for me. It really speaks to me, and I love it. So I was definitely looking forward. I have not watched walkthroughs of this deck. It was kind of lost in the mail for me for a little while, as the last one. We thought the last one, I think it was Shimmering Veil, I thought was just never going to come. That was literally lost in the mail. This took a really long time, but it is now made it here yesterday. And so I am really excited. I have flipped through this and just got a feel for it, but I haven't looked at all of the cards. And so I'm excited to do that tonight. That's the only reason I'm here on my day off, because I'm like, I just really want to look at this deck. So let's take a look at the deck. Amy says, I'm going to catching my first live. Hello. I'm so glad that you're able to catch it. And I'm so glad you found anything they've done helpful. That is amazing. Hello, Mr. Joey and Elle. And Whispers, Healing with My Ancestors. I love your name. So happy to see you walk through my favorite oracle. Okay, so we've got a thumbs up from somebody already. Hello, Mr. Ronald. And obviously, my friends are all here, which I already said hello to. So I am going to dive into this. So the box is similar size. Obviously, this is an older work, Days of Creation, but it is this. I will say, again, I love Stella's artwork, but I will say the things that I love and don't love. One thing I do not love are split box decks. How would I say that? Split deck boxes. Does that make sense? So it's a box that has the card split in half. I understand why this is done, right? And she's not the only person who does this, because it makes the book fit in there, and you don't want a microscopic book, and it is beautiful and all stays together really well. So I understand why that's done. I'm just not a fan of the cards being split. Is that sometimes you can, when you put them together, you can kind of see that the cards have sat split and they don't shuffle together. So I tend to take these types of decks out. I will definitely be having my friend make me a bag for this, so that it doesn't stay split like this. But again, it does make for really compact packaging that can just slide onto your bookshelf. So it's just one of those things, right? It's not my favorite, but I understand why it's done. And I do like the results, because it's like you have this literal book size box. So it's kind of a mixed thing. Some people love it, some people don't. The box feels amazing. It's like beautiful matte with, I don't know if you can see. Yes, you can see there's some gilding there on it. And it's called The Book of the Dead Oracle, obviously by Cilla Conway, who does the art as well as the guidebook. So on the back, it says, this is an oracle like no other. It takes us over the border into death and the afterlife, and offers us the extraordinary sense of light, love, and freedom we can experience when we too cross over. So many of us dread death, but as this deck shows, it is not the end, but the beginning. Of course, it will be the end of our physical life, but the place in which we'll find ourselves is pure wonder. For some, it will be a place they always intuited, but couldn't allow themselves to believe in. For others, it will be a wonderful surprise. And for a few, the people on the fourth path, it will be a highly unpleasant shock. One of the things that I love about Ms. Conway is she does not shy away from the shadows. So it does not surprise me that she has a fourth path here. So that is what we have on the back. So let's take a look. I'm really excited by we have James Eads' Cosmovisions, which has the whole major arcana is in the afterlife, or the life in between lives. as well as we also have the art history for tarot, which deals with past lives. This is not a past life deck, but it really does speak to the time in between when somebody is, you know, making those choices to before kind of processing before getting back onto into the next life. If you, like me, believe in reincarnation, and or moving on into the next path, so into the next life. So I'm really a big fan of these types of decks starting to make their way out. I think obviously death is a topic that a lot of people want to shy away from. It's not something that we're very comfortable with very often, and but it is a very real fact of our existence, right, on this physical plane. We have a finite life, and so understanding and thinking about these about death and what happens after death is very normal, very human thing. And so I like to see some decks coming out with this. Now, I was going to say something. One of the things that I have found, obviously I haven't used this deck yet. We're going to look at it, I promise. But one of the things that I found with the Cosmovisions, while I do use Cosmovisions for past life readings, it is also these types of decks that deal with the other worlds and the lives in between and past lives and death and things like that tend to be really great for reading about liminal spaces. So if you're in a transitionary space in your life, if there are things that are happening that you are trying to process through before you can move on, these kinds of decks, in my experience, seem to work really well for that, even if you're not using them to do a past life reading or contact somebody on the other side. You know, you still have quite a benefit from them, which I have enjoyed. Okay, so here we have the Book of the Dead. It's a magnetic flip that many of us love. I do love a good magnetic flip. You have inside of it the raised and sort of gilded the Book of the Dead Oracle. I really love how Miss Conway does this, where she has all of the cards that she has showing on the fronts of them. I think you get a nice like overview of her decks when she does that. I wonder if she's in the Oracle deck book as well. Yeah, she usually does it in her books also. Which again, I really love. I like to see sort of the whole scope of the deck just by colors. You just see this beautiful swaths of color, and I really enjoy that aspect. So anyways, pointing that out. So again, you've got two ribbons pulling. Let's make sure I put them, I guess, in the right way. That's the first one and the second one. And then in the bottom of it is one of her beautiful paintings. Again, I just love her paintings. The Journey from Death to the Light. And we can kind of see that tunnel going through to the tunnel there at the bottom of the box. So that is that. We'll stick that over here, so people coming in know what we're looking at. We'll come to this in just a second. So here's the back of the deck. I love the back of the deck. I actually really like the gilding on the edges of the deck. I think that it looks really cool on the top. There is gilding on the side. I'm not a huge fan of shiny gilding on sides of the decks, but this really does look good all together. When you look from the back to the front, it just ties it together. So it is quite beautiful. And then the cardstock is really gorgeous matte cardstock. And I'm going to talk about this for a second before we look at the guidebook, but this really excited me. This deck actually has titles. They're very unobtrusive. They're in the corners of the cards. Obviously, we'll see as we go through the deck. But I think that she's hit on like that perfect compromise, because I've said this in both multidimensional Devas as well as Devas of Creation, that I really love that there's nothing interfering with the imagery and you just have the numbers. And I thought the numbers here showed much better than in Devas of Creation. and I understand, I promise you, you get hit by these images when you don't have those titles there. But in terms of working with them and using them, I use this for my ancestor card. With working from them, I've just always wanted a title there so that I just can stay immersed in the reading and don't have to kind of move outside, even just to get to the title of it. So this made me really excited because like I said, it's not interfering. It's just nicely in the corner there. It's not large, but it's very readable, even though they're small. And it just, that makes me so happy. I can't even tell you. It's like my perfect version of things. So obviously we'll come back to that in a second. Let me do this over here and let's zoom in here. I love Silicon Waste books. Again, I've used, I don't know how long I've had. I have to Google or find my video on Davis of Creation to see how long I've had it. But I've had the deck for quite a long time, and I do enjoy hers. I find that her decks for me read very much intuitively, beautifully. Just knowing what the title is often enough to, and then looking at the artwork is enough to just dive straight in. But then I also do enjoy going in and taking a peek at what she has to say. I love that she has a quote here. Let's see what this is, by William Wordsworth. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our live stars, hath had elsewhere its setting and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God who is our home. And this is from Ode on Intimations of Immortality from his deck. And then we have a quote from Lao Tzu. Life and death are one thread, the same line viewed from different sides. So that is, and another quote, oh, these are all quotes, but I'm going to do this. As long as we are afraid of death, we are afraid of life. If we are afraid of dying, we are also afraid of really living. And this is a quote from someone who's experienced an NDE. And she does talk about September 2017. Bam. Thank you, Mr. Patrick. 2017, I've had since I've had Divas and loved it and used it. So I don't know if I should have put that as a, let me do that. I'm going to do that real quick. Hold the line. I'm going to do this. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to pop out. Oh, stop. No, go back. I was going to do this. Sorry, everybody. That was probably super annoying, but I want to start a poll. And I can only, this is the only way I can do it. So let me put a poll in, ask a question. And the option is yes, no. Ask your community. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stick this over here like I did last time because then I can watch it. And now I'm going to cancel this. Okay, there we go. So I put a poll up there to see if anybody in the chat has had a NDE, which stands for a near-death experience, or not. I have definitely had an NDE before, and it definitely, like I had many. And I also definitely know that it completely, really changed the way that I interacted with the energy around me after that, forever after. So it was very powerful. I don't have actually a lot of memories of it, but I know that it happened, and I know that things changed afterwards, but I don't have a lot of memories of it. I did a lot of book reading in the 90s, early 2000s about reading different people's near-death experiences. I find them to be fascinating. I'm of mixed opinions on them. Like some of them, I do think that are obviously near-death experience of well, they're all near-death experiences, but I don't think that all near-death experience stories are really about what exactly is on the other side, right? I think that a lot of times it has to do with what that person is processing and dealing with in that moment. So I don't necessarily take near-death experiences as exact indications of what the afterlife is going to look like. I think that we are all going into, especially that in-between state between being dead and being somewhere else. There's a lot that's being processed there. And so some people can have scary experiences because they may be going into that in a state of fear and other things that they're having to process through. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to be their whole experience. It's just that, you know, they've just kind of dipped in and then get pulled back out, that you barely begin to process anything. So I do find it to be fascinating, and there are some great books. I don't know if she has a bibliography. Let's take a look. Yeah, so she's got some books and some videos here that she's listing, and on the back of it, as well as some on. Apparently, there is a excellent Netflix series that came out in 2021 called Surviving Death. I'll have to take a look at that. I have not seen that before. So anyways, obviously, it's understandable why we would be talking about near-death experiences when, you know, she would be interested in looking at near-death experiences when you're working on a deck that has to do with the afterlife and what that might look like, and what do you believe. You know, you have to process through all of the things that you believe about something or don't believe about things. She does talk about near-death experiences. She talks about, you know, wondering, because she talks about one particular experience of a child that was in a very terrible circumstance. And, you know, then that makes you wonder, okay, well, what are the near-death experiences like for somebody who's not in a good space, whether or not they are what we would think of as a bad person in terms of a murderer or something like that, or just not in a good place. She does mention somebody, the only one she could find was where somebody had committed suicide after his wife had died, and he came back and had a very scary experience. And that makes sense, right? Again, I don't think that that means that person, because they were in that dark place, we're going to go to a bad place. I do not believe in hell or anything like that. But I think that it just reflects that in that moment of, just like I said, dipping in and dipping out, he had experienced great loss. He had experienced great sadness, and he was in that moment. He hadn't had a chance to process that. So it certainly makes sense that somebody hadn't been able to process the pain that they were in to be able to deal with that. So it's very, very interesting for sure. She talks about how she has not experienced an actual NDE, although she nearly drowned when she was 6 and has never forgotten the experience. And she still does not enjoy getting water up her nose, understandably. So she was fished out, but she has had near-death experience, but not in the sense of having memories of it there. So again, she does a really good job in her guidebooks of kind of lining out where she's coming from. And I don't think that we have to be in the exact place of where she's coming from in order to use an oracle deck, right? I don't get to sit down and question create an oracle creator about all of their beliefs, and I don't expect all of my beliefs to line up with their beliefs, as long as the cards themselves and the path of it are open enough that you can utilize that regardless. But I like that she goes through and gives you sort of the main structures of the deck and where she's coming. There was an interesting, I had just skimmed through this. There was a section in here that I thought was quite interesting on the spirit versus the soul. So she says, I should explain that I see the spirit as separate and different from the soul. The difference is a fine one, and I disagree with more than a few authorities here. This is just my opinion, so I invite you to make your own decision on it. So she looks at the spirit. Let me find where the spirit is the part of the conscious universe, the part of us which resides in our body until death. It then departs the body and moves into the afterlife, where after it has assimilated the most immediate learnings, it expands to encompass the soul, which is everlasting through all lifetimes and throughout all realms. The soul, as I see it, is a fundamental eternal self, and it is possible to encounter someone and know that you have met them before, perhaps in a previous life or in some inexplicable parallel universe. I mean, that makes sense to me. That kind of sees where the idea that spirit is that spark, right? That is part of the divine, part of creation, part of source, that is in all of us and that animates, our bodies. Whereas the soul is that piece that does go through lifetime after lifetime, sometimes in groups and things of that nature, but we're not going to go there, right? So again, she goes through all that, and she goes through her paths. Again, love how she gives you the overview of the cards and a quick find of the cards, because her cards are not alphabetical, but they are numbered. But she gives you a quick sheet, although I've never find it hard in numbered decks to just find it this way, but she does give you your page numbers there. And then it goes into the card. So I just like to give an example of what you're going to get. So let's take the first card here, and oh no, I gotta be careful. I don't want to roll over it. Okay, let's put this onto the table and not on the edge of the table. Oh my goodness, my hair. I am so sorry. Now we're gonna look like some kind of 80s workout video. I'm about to go find a clip. Oh, look, we have a clip. Let's pause for a minute, guys. I'm going to get, and gals, and anybody else, I'm going to get really irritated by my hair. So let's just get it out of my face here for a minute. Messily again. I just wanted to look at this deck. I really wasn't interested in looking put together. Clearly, this is not helping, but it's driving me nuts. Okay. I don't want to keep getting distracted by my own hair. Okay. Let's take a look at this. All right. So here we have the card that is death, which is absolutely gorgeous. Let me just start there. Most stories would probably choose to place death at the end, but in a deck of the afterlife, it seems only right to have it as the beginning. Here we see a person either on the verge of death or just over the borderline. Apparently, our body functions close down at different rates. Once the heart stops beating, it takes the brain some minutes to stop functioning, and if the heart is restarted within a certain limited time, the person can be resuscitated with varying degrees of success. We are so terrified of death that most of us would consider this a good idea, although as we'll discover later, those fears are based on our ignorance and fear of death and what might come after it. In this image, however, the person has been allowed to die naturally. In the background, we can see shadowy figures, spirits, here to ensure that their loved one is guided up to the tunnel between life and the afterlife. This supposes the dead person is loved, of course. In case of someone thoroughly obnoxious or even, dare I say it, evil, the shades might be here to ensure he or she goes down to meet their just deserts. Having said that, I can see that this is my earthly tendency to judgment. Who knows the reality of their lives? Unfortunately, it's not down to me. They themselves will see it in their life reviews. I have to say, I get a big kick out of Silicon Way, because she definitely just kind of says the way she sees it. She even laughs because she doesn't have a lot of compassion for people who do horrible things, understandably so. But she even mentions earlier here that where was it? I thought it was pure Silicon Way gold, where she says, If my ideas are correct, she'll be in the fourth path, and I can't say I would wish her to get a second chance at forgiveness, though I'm sure my friends would point out that this could be due to my lack of compassion. So she's very, very clear that she doesn't have a lot of compassion for stupidity or people making really horrible choices in their lifetime. So, you take that with a grain of salt and you insert how you see the afterlife going. Again, everybody's going to get a chance to review their life and hopefully try again and do it better, right? But I just think it's funny. Behind the shades, the tunnel between lives is opening up, though many people reported it's not invariable. And some spirits, when death is too sudden or undesired, are too confused to move up into its embrace and stay close to their bodies or habitual residence. We'll meet them again in card 21. I have a lot of experience with confused people that are in between. So that resonates with the way that I have personally experienced things. And again, that we all have to come to our own truths about this. And my general overall thinking about what happens after death. Number one, I do believe in reincarnation. Number two, I do believe that there is a space between either reincarnation or going on to the afterlife in a more permanent capacity, in which we are processing and figuring things out, so that we can make that decision whether to go on to the next life or to step off the wheel for a while or to step off the wheel permanently. In terms of specifics, like, is there a city of gold, or is there, Valhalla, or is there, the specific place and what it might look like? I'm of the mindset that I don't think we'll ever know until we get there, and I'm okay with that. I don't personally find the need of having a lot of details on that. So I just allow that we're going to find out. But there are certain things that because of my own personal experiences, that I do believe, and that's good enough for me, and the rest will sort itself out. That's kind of where I land at things. Possible interpretation. So she has a section where she kind of describes the card and her take on it. And she says multiple times, look, this is just the way she believes. You take what you want and leave what you don't want, right? We all have to be discerning adults that understand that it's good to engage with people, whether we exactly believe same way they believe or not. And as long as the overall, it works for us, then, learn from seeing other ways people see things. I think it's fascinating. So then she gives you a possible interpretation. All reports about near-death experiences emphasize the importance that learning has in these realms. The interpretation here is for opening your mind, discovering different realities. In our former lives, we have learned to be suspicious of lessons, as they are often biased and limited. In the afterlife, we can restore our passion for learning and discover how things really are. Interpretation then will be about rethinking any fixed ideas about life and death and anything in between. If you have decided that now you're an adult, you can stop learning, forget it. This card is about staying open and often reversing previous opinions. Allow yourself to open up once more into your original wondering self. Imagine being able to discover anything you've ever wanted to know, even about forbidden knowledge. So I love, though, the fact that, so let me zoom in on this. I love the fact that death, in terms of the interpretation, is really, it's that next step. You're really standing at the beginning of the unknown, and the point of this first initial moment is to kind of free yourself from fears, free yourself from thinking that you've got it all figured out, and be open to take that next step and see what happens afterwards. I think that is a great concept. I also love that death is the first card in Cosmovisions, and I know I'm not comparing these two decks; they're quite different, but what I love about both of these decks is that we are seeing, decks that are like this, and the major arcana in the Cosmovision starts with the death card as well, because it is that okay, now we're entering into this liminal in-between space, and it makes a lot of sense. So that's an example of what you're going to get. So you have, more. Sorry, let me zoom out a little bit. You've got more like in kind of her look at what the card is and what we're seeing and how she interprets this, a small thumbnail in color, and then a possible, this is one way you could interpret it, but obviously use your own interpretive skills to interpret, and then a place for you to put your own notes. I actually did use this place in Days of Creation because I did meet those energies in different places and have my own experiences in readings, and so it was nice to have a place to kind of jot down quick notes about how that card has come up in readings for myself. So I actually found that to be useful. I don't often do that with decks, but I did find with Days of Creation, I did enjoy that, having that there, because these are her oracles are often you know, again, in multi dimensions and meeting sort of things that are in liminal spaces. And so we're all going to meet those in different ways because we bring our own experiences to the table. So it was nice to have a space to jot down notes. So that's what you would get. Obviously, we go through all of the cards in that way. And then at the end, so there are 48 cards. I don't think I said that. There are 48 cards. And then there's a section on using this deck. She seems to combine this deck a lot in her examples. So she gives an example reading and then how she would interpret that. She does several. How to do difficult readings, and she gives examples of actual readings, a reading about reincarnation and how that was interpreted by the cards, and so on. So most of these, they are reading about the soul's needs, a reading for an unloved mother, a reading for a client's life purpose, reaching out to a beloved therapist. So these are all actual readings with the deck to be able to see how you might use this and how you might approach it, how she does it, combining it with other decks. She also does a section on using it in terms of meditation as well. So that's what we have. We'll obviously be referencing this a little bit as we go through the cards, but I did want to at least give a good look. Again, we'll wait to shuffle till the end, but here is a close-up of the back. The edges are gilded, and so are the sides. Like that. And a cardstock is beautiful matte, not sticky matte, just straight up nice matte. Let me zoom in a little bit. Should I brighten this, do you think? What are we thinking now that we're looking at the cards? For me, this looks dark, but I know that my monitor tends to skew dark, so I like to get feedback before I go forward. I'm going to take a drink. Lighten it. Okay. It looks dark to me too. So, whoops, I think I did the wrong thing again. 1, 2. Right, let me do this off, and then let me go manual. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I've done before. Is that any better, or should I go more? I know. She is always correct, so I always ask her. Okay, let me wake up my mouse because it has my computer has been causing me difficulties today, so we may be limited. I'm going to peek at our poll while we're at 28% yes for having a near-death experience and 73% no. I wonder if the ones who have not wish they had, or they're happy that they haven't. I guess we should probably be happy when we haven't. Okay, let me go back here. It doesn't seem to be going up. Let me put my hand where I can see it. I feel like it's kind of capped or something. That's so weird. I don't know. I've had so much struggle. I'll be honest. Today, the tech today has not been. Let me just look at what there's one other way. Let me go. I know it's not changing it. It normally does, but it's like it's, let me do auto again. Let me go manually. It's like it's at the very top when it actually isn't. Like that's not doing anything. Well, I think we're just going to have to roll with it. Let me just try one thing. Sorry, folks. I tried to do this beforehand. How about that? Is that better? I know it's kind of coming from the side, but that might help. Is that better or worse? Sorry, folks that don't care, but yep, is that better or yep, is that worse? I guess. Let's take this out of the way in case it is trying to combat the coloration. Okay, let me get us to where I can have the book here. Better. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Is there anything else that I could do? Usually the exposure works better, so I just think I need to reset everything. It's I can't see where I can mess with the saturation, so I'm just going to leave it alone. We're just going to let it be what it is. These cards are gorgeous in person. You'll have to trust me on that. Okay, so here we talked about death again. This is I'm going to apologize once and then I'm not going to apologize anymore. This is fun for me. I love to do walkthroughs. I love, especially a deck I'm excited about. So I do like to lift it up and see texture sometimes. If that's annoying to you, I completely understand, but I'm still going to do it. So there we go. See how at the bottom here where the water is, it's like you're exiting the ocean and into the cave. I just love her texture. And this isn't all, it's just her artwork. And she does a really good job of capturing that because we've got these flat cards. You know, I would love to see these paintings in person because this is hard to be able to translate all this texture and beauty. Is not an easy thing to do when you're trying to get it from the painting into a flattened card image. And I just love how much detail in a card that, it's pretty, it's a cave, right? You'd think there's not much going on there, but there's so much going on. And that's what I really love about her artwork. It's very captivating for me. Okay. So we talked about death. So obviously we're starting with death. Now this does have, I wouldn't say suits. She doesn't really break them into suits too much, but we do have the 4 paths and you'll see where it breaks down into what are very similar to working with suits. There is an order here on purpose. So we have obviously death that happens. And then we, which is just sort of a main card. Then we have a card that references the spirit rising, which is again so beautiful. How do you capture in painting what a spirit rising looks like? But that looks like it to me, right? That works for me. Again, I'm super fan of this. I'm going to gush to her about this. I would love this to be a thing because it is perfect. I have, doing readings, I can tap right into what it is without thinking twice about it and then fall flat into the images as per usual. That's just really made me happy. So this is a card that speaks to our spirit. Each one of us is a part of spirit, part of the greater consciousness of creation, something I do believe. It's what you do with your life that suggests what essence your spirit carries now and what it will carry when you leave your body to take the next steps into the unknown. So this card will probably reflect your hopes and fears about death and any future existence. So for me, if this would come in, you're just at that moment when you're rising into something new. What are you taking with you into this new experience, right? Are you taking in fears with you? Are you able to release those fears so that you don't take those along with you? I could really see this being a powerful card to work with somebody over as they're shifting into a transitional space or shifting into a next path in their life, to stop and contemplate what kind of energies are you bringing with you as you make that shift, I think could be very helpful in a reading. Here we have the beautiful passage card, which I think we saw on the bottom of the box, which I've kind of gotten rid of here, over here. I think this is the card that's the image is on the bottom of the box, which is so beautiful. Obviously, we hear a lot about like these tunnels and these passageways, but just having a card that is the passage in readings, again, very, very helpful. We're in this transition period. We're already in it. We're in the tunnel. We're making our way through it, but we're very much in the transition between two places. And the image of the passage between these different states is what's relevant here. And she talks about how shamanic practitioners move into altered states of consciousness through a space in our reality, going down to the underworld or up to what is termed the upper world. So this can be a passage to the next place, or it can be a passage to the upper world, a passage to the underworld where you're going to go meet guides or something like that. You can really see the application in shamanic practices, because people who are working with those types of ideologies, that's part of the work, right? Is going in and meeting different guardians, different spirits, and things of that nature. So I love this card. Here we have the greeting. This is as you're emerging from the tunnel, right? So you have that rising upward, that moving through the tunnel. And then as you kind of go outward, right, your spirit emerges into the afterlife and are greeted by beings of light, or alternatively by loved ones. The religious amongst us might consider these shining beings as angels or Christ or Vishnu or some other deity. Naturally enough, we carry our history and ideas with us into the afterlife, which I do believe as well. I think that everybody's greeting is going to look different depending on your ideologies, depending on the way that you bring form into what is really, in my opinion, likely pure energy, right? And so what forms you bring to that, due to that is going to ease you into that space between, I think is probably very likely. I like that it's so ambiguous like this, because everybody's expression of that energy might look very different. So that, I think, works really well in an oracle deck. So then I love this of the life review. It's like they're standing there. This, almost like you're seeing a film strip or a movie projector that's winding around and taking a look at the life that you just left. I do firmly believe that, because I do, again, believe in reincarnation. And so, but part of processing between lives, and that can be a very, very long time or a blink of an eye. Time is not linear, I don't believe, especially in the afterlife. And so whatever amount of time somebody needs to process through the life that they just left, and kind of see, get a good look at that from a perspective that's not down in the middle of it, and be able to sort of review and go over what's happening, I think is really powerful. And so I love, again, to have this here. And so the life review, she says, does not necessarily occur at the same time for every spirit, though most near-death experience people report something similar. Some are given the review just after they're met by a shining being or loved one. For the more resolved spirits of the first path, the review will probably reflect a soul that took the challenges presented and surmounted them, perhaps not easily, but possibly gracefully. For those on the second path, probably the majority of us, as they wait the shining beings, a series of images can flash before your eyes. This is not a judgment, but a gift. It's an opportunity to review, which again is what we see in the judgment card, right? In tarot, the judgment card is that time to stop and assess. It's a self-assessment in a modern way, versus that throwing your life, your good deeds and your bad deeds at the seat of Christ, which some people would still see the life review as. But if you aren't in that particular belief system, it's still a chance to assess and review and try to make sense of what you've just came out of. I think that's fantastic. So then we have the innocence regained. As the spirits emerge from their life reviews, which may well be quite devastating for some, they may wish to sit quietly recovering for a few days or centuries. I love that, depending on how they experience time in the afterlife, of course. Shamans talk about soul retrieval, something I very much believe in and utilized for myself in the past year. Shamans talk about soul retrieval because we often lose parts of ourselves through trauma, ancestral issues, or life difficulties. Here now, the spirits are offered the opportunity to reunite with their souls. It may not be easy. The image shows a turbulent, lightning lit landscape, but the shining beings are always around to help. And if we can stay the course, our souls gradually regain their natural peace and innocence. I love this. Again, for me, the light and there, I think it's the cosmic beings in the Cosmovision's Oracle. For me, these are also can be ancestral guardians that have been, family lineage guardians, family members, deities, depending on, again, your connections that are all kind of surrounding you and helping to reconnect and sort of restore that space before you're going to be ready to try to start this all over again. Having that moment to sort of reset, I think, is really beautiful. It makes a lot of sense to me. And then we have two cards, I think, because that comes later, so I'm sorry. I skimmed through these again. I haven't looked at them all, but I have skimmed through them. This is reunions. So this is about connecting with souls that have passed on, human souls, animal souls, like a pet, a friend, spirits of the, I hate to say pets, truthfully, because it just seems reductive, but those close animal kinships is that a better word? I think that works better. The kinship, animal kinships that have passed on before us, human people that have passed on before us, animal guardians that have passed or are just waiting for us or we have connected with. And just this moment of being able to, we connect with these energies all the time in our, I do love how small they are because they don't get in the way. I can read them, and I usually struggle, right, even with glasses. So I will say that in person they're crisp enough that with my glasses I can read them easily. So that's I like actually the size of it. I think it's the compromise for those of us like myself who have said, please let there be a title. So I'm happy with it, but it's not my deck, right? Anyways, I love this card. Again, we have those connections even after our families and loved ones have passed away. Our animal guardians we have connection with in our lifetime. Our kindreds that have kinship animals that have passed on, we connect with. But to have that moment where you're like there more directly has got to be so amazing, right? So I love that card. Okay, so now we have I know this is going to take longer than I thought, but when is that always the case? They're just so beautiful. They're so beautiful. It's hard, and it's such an amazing concept to have access to in a deck. Look at this. I mean, come on, folks. Let's please look at that. It's so beautiful. Yeah, I truthfully, and I struggle with small fonts. I wouldn't want it any bigger either. But see how the swipes of the paint texture even in the background, it's just so beautiful. Gardens and winding walls are everywhere in these realms. The plants are the archetypes, the underlying forms of flowers, trees, fountains. I wonder who the gardeners are. Maybe the devas or some evolved souls can choose to look. I do believe that. I do believe that you can choose to kind of stop and stay for a while and tend the gardens and tend to the animal spirits and the plant spirits and the people spirits who are just staying there for a while. And so I think this is really gorgeous. Doesn't it, Miss Jamie? Blue Crescent says, I had a reunion dream last night. Just a quick, I'm always thankful for them. Always, 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 too. Such a blessing. Okay. So then we have the shining tutors. After wandering the realm for a while, discovering the joy, freedom, and overwhelming love that fill the ether, spirits on the first path may have accumulated a list of questions. They now encounter the shining tutors who will answer as many questions as can be asked and open their eyes to wonders. I have memories of, I'm not going to go into lots of detail about like near-death experience, about definitely meeting up with people who are confused and discombobulated and haven't quite moved on yet. But one of the things I do, I will have memories of connecting with like a teacher type role, probably in between like this, and asking all these questions. Of course, I can't remember them when like I wake up, but they're like true, very brilliant, very defined memories, dreams. But you wish you could just have access to all of that and be able to pull it back. So I do love that this is here as well. All reports about near-death experiences emphasize the importance that learning has in these realms. The interpretation here is for opening your mind, discovering different realities, and again, just being able to ask those questions that you want to ask. And then you have number 10, the reality of form. The shining tutors open the spirit's eyes to the reality above and beyond anything they could have experienced on earth. I love the way this painting has really shifted, right? It's become much more solid in form, much more deeper saturations than we've seen. Even, the physical form looks to be much more physically present, if that makes sense. And you have that sense of reality of form, that sense of moving from something that is a bit more ethereal and in between. I'm so sorry about that chip on my nail. It's driving me bonkers, so it's probably driving you bonkers. So I think you can actually see that shift. Interpretations for this is that many people spend their lives searching for the truth. The problem is that it often seems there are as many truths as there are human beings, obviously. And so this is about kind of unifying and bringing form to what is actual truth here, which is quite beautiful. Then we have unification here, and these are two spirits, one gold and one blue, and are fusing into one. And this is where the spirit, again, she goes into, like we talked about, the difference between spirit and form, and that when you're in these transitional spaces, your spirit, that essence of divineness and oneness with the universe, and your soul, which carries all of these memories life after life, can get separated as everything is kind of working back to this moment of being able to restore that connection between the spirit and the soul. And I would say then that obviously at that point, somebody would be able to then move into the next lifetime there. So we have the unification. Then we have this beautiful dance of creation. This image shows a creative being, one of those energies I call devas, holding and conducting the elements as they build into the peak of phenomenal energies needed to create new universes, stars, and galaxies. She has said, I love this, that she's put this in here, because she says, when I move into the afterlife, I want to see this. I want to discover the secrets of the universe. What is at its core? Is it consciousness, as I believe, or probably something which my imagination cannot even visualize? I'd love to learn the secrets of numbers. And she goes on and just really, you can feel her that in this painting we have this, all of these potentials and possibilities that we can learn once we have this opportunity to see. And we've probably all seen it multiple times, right? It's that thing that drives hope. It's that thing that drives us to keep moving forward, to strive to be better and better people, because I think we've all seen this more than one time. And so we can feel echoes of it in nature, echoes of it in souls that we meet, echoes of it in reflections in the mirror when we're wise enough to see it. We see echoes of it in our dreams. And so you can feel her kind of stretching towards that, what she really would like to remember, which I think is quite powerful. In terms of interpretations, it's about sort of our dreams and our desires and all of the potentials and possibilities of the universe. It's quite beautiful. Here we have now, so these were what is seen as the first, so we have death, right? Okay, that's kind of a card separate, but we have then the first path. How many cards are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cards that represent the first path. This is sort of the most pure form of just moving from life and into the afterlife and the in-betweens and going through things really quite easily. Right? This might be a child who hasn't, experienced a whole lot, maybe doesn't have a lot of things that he has to work through or she has to work through, an animal, or she even talks about plant spirits here. This is sort of that road to, let me deal over here. So you have sort of that purest path forward is I guess how I would see. I'm gonna do some cleanup over here. Okay, I think somebody else might be doing it with me and mine's just being slow. Okay, I'm gonna leave it alone. Jamie's doing it. Okay, I'm probably making it worse. Okay, so this first path would be seen as sort of that purest form of, work to be done, but maybe not so much work to be done at this point, right? So then when we come to the second path, this is looking a little bit, she's at least from the creator's perspective, this is more along the lines of what probably most people are going to have to process. We all have some shadow and light that we need to process through that might take a little bit more work in between lives. This deck walkthrough right in this moment is helping me stick with my intention, not too much. I'm glad to know that. I am glad to know that. So now we're coming back to the second path. These are, she defines this as being that they are confused. They've been through their life reviews. They are trying to catch up with themselves. They understand that there's a shift that occurred, but they just haven't quite been able to reconcile everything. So there's this moment of being bewildered. You're not sure what's happening. You're not sure what's going on. You still have that strong connection to the past life that you just came out of, but you're kind of sense this movement forward into another space, but you're not really sure yet. You're still confused. You're still not quite sure what's happening. And I think that's great that we have a card like that here. But I think this happens in a lot of transitional states as well. So we have that card. We have the first dawn. So this is a white translucent figure standing at the edge of a hill. This is in a way a reflection of how the spirit feels now. But as they look out across the green verdant valley with fleecy clouds framing a beautiful early morning landscape, they realize being here is like the first dawn. They themselves are reborn. So this is about kind of moving from that state of confusion into sort of like, okay, I can see the path that's ahead. I can see my way forward. I'm starting to kind of orient myself into this next phase. It's really beautiful. I would like to do another poll. Can I end one poll and start another poll? I don't know. I'm going to try it. I'm going to just try to make another poll. Poll. No, it doesn't let me. If I end this poll, let's try. End poll. Okay, so now can I start another poll? No, they need to improve the poll format. I want to be able to do more polls than just one. There were 50 votes. 30% of those have had a near-death experience and 70% have not. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Yes and no. I do like these polls. I know it's probably annoying some people, but I think that it is fun because I get feedback. It's just interesting. I would definitely say yes, but it doesn't allow me to vote, which I think is not right. I should be able to vote in my own poll. This is exactly what this particular spirit does, flying up to join the bird she saw from below in the valley. So again, so you can see the confusion. We can see this person who is starting to orient themselves. And then we see the spirit themselves fly up to join with that and kind of find their freedom, which is really quite beautiful. In terms of interpretation, the interpretation, she says, is twofold. It's partnership and the joy of flying. Both bird and spirits are sentient, luxuriating in the sensation of moving with the air currents, just having that moment of freedom. You're disconnected from a life that is often very heavy, even at its most beautiful. And so this is, she talks about how, what she really wants when in the afterlife is that moment of really seeing all of creation. I talked to my son a lot. Obviously, my son knew that he was not going to live to be an old person. And so we had conversations about death. We had conversations about what he believed about death and what he believed about the afterlife. And both of us had that strong, that's one of the things when we move into the afterlife, to have that ability to just soar, disconnected from all of the weight and the heaviness, to just feel the wind and feel the breezes and the currents and move with it. Like that is that. And I have many dreams like that. And it's the most amazing thing. And I'm always disappointed to wake up from them. Definitely, I agree. It's very much similar to feeling in astral traveling. But that's this is an image of how I see that kind of first moment when I really realize, okay, I'm in this space for a little while where I can just be completely free. I will be flying for sure. Yes, if you've ever had a flying dream, I didn't ask the question very well. I was very surprised when it let me do it again. So yeah, the question is, do you dream of flying? I do lots and lots. Okay. Next, we have the bee dance. After being soothed by the flight, the spirit can return down into. So I see, this is really beautiful. Sorry, I keep bringing these out, but we have the confusion. They start to find their path and they swoop up in to meet that bird and join with that bird and have that moment of flight. And then they swoop down into the microscopic. So now it's like they've zoomed down all the way into the grass that we see down here, down into the level of the flower and of the bee and of the plant, right? And having what that dose of sweetness might be, and being reminded of what pure sweetness and joy can taste and smell and feel like in this. Absolutely, this soul is just like experiencing the wonder of it all in this moment, which is really beautiful. I love this deck already. I'm sorry. I knew I would, but it's like, oh. And I just love the title of this. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Look at this. This image is so, so, so beautiful. And I love the title, Further Up, Further In. It feels like maybe it would be a title of a chapter of like the Lord of the Rings or something. Do you see what I mean though about texture and lines and light? This is one that I would say I would love to see this painting, right, in person, because you just know that it's just amazing. I love that. So this card is Further Up and Further In. This could be about more exploration. This could be about taking a refuge in the valley and resting. Again, this is a person on the second path who might need a little bit more time to acclimate to the in-between and more time to rest as well, which I think is absolutely beautiful. Neighborhood Art says, I did once have a very profound experience while meditating. A figure appeared, walked beside me, and spoke in conversation that stayed with me. I've had a couple of those like that as well. And the feeling is extraordinary and inexplicable. And it's just like just beyond reach of really being able to grasp the whole conversation, because maybe in this limited mental space, we can't comprehend it until we're back up where we've got some more expanded mindset. Yes, this is beautiful. I'm definitely overwhelmed by how beautiful they are. So then this is the soul family. Most of the spirits on the second path have now moved through their initial confusion and resentment in the strange realm, a place they constantly feared throughout their lives, but now find it easier than they ever imagined. They found joy in exploration on all levels, from the minuscule of the bee to the height of flying. And now they find companions to explore further. This soul family share many things: appreciation of sights and sounds. They can fly together, run together, walk together, and they may well become a group soul. And this is another thing that I love. I'm sorry, I'm getting too excited, but because I do believe in group souls. I do think that we reincarnate with groups of souls. We meet people that we remember for a reason, because we have experienced lives with them before. There is a reincarnation. I know I'm skipping ahead, but I just want to show you this. There is a reincarnation card, and then, oops, I thought it was 41. Let me go back here. Group soul. Oh, she must have changed the numbering. Her group soul. Here we go. Here's the group soul after reincarnation, because there are people that come together in a beautiful way, and you're starting to reunite with those that may be in between lives as well. So that's really beautiful. The use of blue and tear sienna pigments are beautiful. Patrick says, I wish she sold large prints. I'd love to hang so many of these in my home. I agree. Okay, absolutely beautiful. But look, I mean, this is just, I just love this. Okay, I know we can't do this, right? We can't do this, Kelly. Okay, here we have freedom. And so again, there's just now, it's just this unfettered. They have gone all the way from the beginning of the path. Oops, I lost the beginning of the path. Because again, this is the second path. A little more work to get to this place of feeling utterly free and an abandonment here. What does this freedom mean to you? You know, in your real life, if you're doing this card, what does freedom mean to you? But the soul here understands true freedom after processing through that, going down into the minuscule, going up into the heavens, seeing all there is to see, connecting with people and souls yet again, and knows for that moment like what being free means, which is gorgeous. And then we have the shining sea, and this is, C is for me. C makes me cry. This is why Moana makes me cry all the time. I am Moana is really saying I am ocean. That's what Moana means. We won't go there. Deirdre's like, please don't go there again, my adopted sister. Many people in spirit or in flesh love the sight and sound of the ocean, enjoying the briny smells, which may remind them of childhood by the sea, or past lives by the sea, or family connections by the sea, right? The interpretation of this card will no doubt be about yearning for something deep within you, possibly the ocean or an inner sea that calls you. It gives me goosebumps. It's going to make me cry. Absolutely beautiful. Again, her paintings are beautiful. I just adore her artwork. Yes, Angus. Freedom from the confines of the human experience. Yes, yes, and yes. Very well said. So that was the second path. I want to keep these in piles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these. Well, because we actually have death and rising up and the passage. These all occur for everybody. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's probably how it is. So we're just making piles. You know, I like to process decks. So we're playing here. So we talked about the first path, right, which is the easiest path forward. These are, in my opinion, these are probably, again, children who have crossed over, or even older people who have, you know, lived to that point in which you kind of regain that childish innocence again before passing, and then move into the next space, or animals that have passed on a pretty smooth transition, not a lot of their own personal work that they have to be doing. And then we have the second path, which are people who are still confused. They're a little bit like, I'm this shifting, it may be a sudden death or something that causes it to be very difficult to be able to make that shift so quickly, is a second path. And then finding their way to sort of recenter and refine, experience that freedom of it, is the second path, which in the author lists as being where most people are, the everyday ordinary people probably feel like that in that sense, right? So the third path, however, is the lost. So this is a time to return to those poor spirits who, for one reason or another, have never quite made it through into the afterlife. Their physical existence have ended, but either by choice or involuntarily, they haven't found their way to that tunnel. So these sound like people who would be like the hungry dead, or the hungry ghosts. I think it would be called the hungry ghosts that some cultures believe in. These would to me be actual spirits that we would see, as ghosts. Although, this is not a video about ghosts. I think they're different kinds. Sometimes we're looking at movie clips, energetic movie clips, but there are spirits, I think, that are confused and lost and got stuck between and didn't quite get through the doorway. And that's what this would be about. Neighborhood Art says, Kelly, have you ever believed something else? I mean, have you always had these understandings, or did you come to them? That's a very good question. I was quite young, right? So I was young when I was in fourth grade. I would have been in fourth grade, like the summer of my fourth grade year, going into fifth grade. I was very happy Catholic. I believed that Mary was, somebody I could just chit chat with. I had no concept of God. I only had a concept of Mary. Very easygoing existence. Life was, there was nothing frightening about any, the divine or what's going to happen later, and went right into a very, very, very rigid form of Christianity that had, screaming fires of hell and pits of, demons literally gnawing on you, and, people screaming from hell, preachers that would paint hell as they were preaching at you, right? So a lot of fear was injected in me at a very young age. And so that took quite a while, right? That fear, and that I was very imaginative. I could visualize everything that they were telling me. And so there was a lot of fear for me for a very, very long time. That would have been hard for me to see past that. Now, I will say that even in the midst of all of that, in junior high, high school, in which I really wouldn't have had much reason to know this or really believe in it, although reincarnation is found in the Bible, we won't go there, but I did strongly believe, I've always believed in reincarnation, and I don't know where that idea came from. It would not have been something that I would have been taught, obviously. But so I don't know where that came from. I always strongly believed in that, but I was very, very much infused with a lot of fear that took time. Well, it took time, but it took like a breaking point. It would have been my junior year in high school. I called bullshit on all of it. I just said, I don't believe this. Like, I do not believe in a God that is going to send people into a fiery pits of hell to burn for all eternity for whatever reason. I don't care how horrible they were, right? And so, it was 11th grade that I just said, nope, I don't believe this. Like, I refuse to believe this. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And, and then trying to sort of find my path to what I believe. So that was a very long answer. I'm sorry. But, so that chunk of that sort of injected in fear and, fear, just plain old horrible fear, definitely interrupted any sort of, I guess, natural beliefs that I might have had. But other than reincarnation, I always have believed in reincarnation, and I have no clue where that belief came from. So that is, but I was pretty young, right? I was in 11th grade when I said no. I said, this is wrong. I sent a big long letter to the pastor of that church, the school that I went to, and said that whatever God is or isn't, when you meet up with them, you're in a lot of trouble, that what you're doing is very wrong and destructive. And yeah, I was just done with it. I was over it. So I look back at, because I was very non-confrontational, very sweet, very nice. I look at my old self and I'm like, you were just such a nice person. You're such a good girl. But I was over it. I said, no, nope, not doing it. So I am proud of my young self for standing up to that. But then, then it was just a lifetime of saying, okay, well, what do I believe? I know what I don't believe. I don't believe that. I refuse to believe any of that, but I don't know exactly what I do believe. And then it's been a lovely, I guess, lifetime of figuring out what I do believe. So anyways, long answer. Sorry. Okay. So we're on the third path. And the third path, again, this seems to be about people who are lost. And I just love this. There is a shadow here. I don't know if you can see that shadow, but there is a shadow, but they can barely distinguish between themselves and the darkness, right? That's energy that they just aren't sure where they are at. I have definitely encountered souls who are lost and confused and still stuck in fear. So I really like that these shadow cards are here, because I don't think that it's realistic, right, to have a deck that is all shining paths and gardens, because even when, the best of the best happens, all of us, I think, when we pass into the next life, have a lot of things to process. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of feelings of being lost. There's a lot of feelings of trauma that occur, that no matter what happens in the afterlife, we've got to work through a lot of this stuff. And so to pretend that darkness isn't there to have to deal with, I think would be a foolish deck. And so I really love that there are these cards here, because the same thing happens if you're using this deck for readings and you're doing readings about transitional phases. There are moments in which we are lost in shadows and we are lost in overwhelming fears. This is part of our experience as human beings, and especially when we're in transitional spaces. And so having cards that reflect that, I personally, as a reader, think that that's very, very useful. So I love this. So here's a card for fear. Here's a card for being stuck in limbo, like you're just kind of stuck there. You're not here, you're not there. Some Christians call it purgatory, but it's just that sense of being in that space which you're neither one way or another. And I think this really, I love the depiction here. Form is kind of fluid. There's not even a structure to it. There's just a cloudy kind of grayness to it. You're kind of stuck in this in-between space. And I think that reflects places that we're in our lifetime, but then also I can see where this can happen between as well. Angus says, we weren't taught anything as children, so you can imagine the soul searching and confusion as an adult. Yes. Yes, beautiful. Here we have the dark glass. We see through the dark glass, but darkly is a wonderful verse of the Bible. I think there are beautiful verses in the Bible. I am a fan of the King James Bible because the language is beautiful. I think it's something like we see through a glass, but darkly, or something like that. That's what makes me think of. I'm not saying that this is what this card is about. The last few images will have shown us something of what the lost spirits experience. We might wonder when it begins to ease for them. In dark glass, they can see their reflections distorted and slightly passive. These liminal spirits are, not surprisingly, still projecting their fears and recent history onto their current experience. So they're not able to see, what we saw in the first path is a sense of purity, right? So you're able to actually see what is really there. But think about if you went through a life that was full of trauma and full of difficulty, and you are crossing into this next lifetime, and you've got to process that. And until you do, that all of that energy is getting kind of distorting what you can really see. That makes a lot of sense to me, just in terms of even as human beings, as we process through and heal with things, right? The whole healing process, this looks like this, right? Where we're kind of in a limbo. Look, don't mess with me, I won't mess with you. This is very much experience that I had with that severing from Christianity. But then when my son was born very, very sick, I literally said to God, look, you stay over there, I'm staying over here. I'm just going to be, I don't care what I believe, I don't care what I don't believe, I got to deal with a very sick child. I literally said, go over there, God, whoever you are, I cannot deal with you right now. So go over there, and stayed in limbo for a while until then I could start processing through. Then I was still having to fix that distortion that those wrong teachings had put over lenses over my eyes. You've got to deal with that. Hopefully you end some guides, and then you start to move into a release. Do you know what I'm saying? So we can see this in the processing of healing of traumas in the physical world. So it makes perfect sense that this would also be something that would occur when we're trying to process things in between lifetimes as well. In my opinion, again, this is just my opinion here. I really think it resonates quite strongly, and certainly, again, as working with people who are going through transitionary periods, I think this can be very powerful, a very powerful tool. Okay, so that's the dark glass. So then we have the psychopomp, which I really love this card being here. She talks about how, what she says here is, this is an intriguing energy, a figure who assists spirits on their journey to the next realm, aiding those unfortunates who have become lost somewhere in between. Hermes, the Greek magus, is best known, but there are a number of other beings who act as psychopomps. For example, Anubis and Azrael, the angel of death. There are many others around the world. As this figure is obviously feminine, I wondered if I could depict an energy like Oya, or the Yoruba goddess of the underworld, guardian of the gates of death. I think this could also be the ferryman, although she puts the ferryman in a different place. I don't see the ferryman as being something that is negative, but I think that's quite powerful to have that sort of spirit guardian who's now going to say, I know this is all really confusing. We're going to start to help to guide you out of the space that you're in. This is a beautiful card, like the painting wise. Look, this is just beautiful. This card is called Release. Again, I am a huge fan of these titles. Thank you, Ms. Conway. I think it's just going to make it as such an easier. Again, I love the multidimensional devas and devas of creation, because you're forced to kind of first fall into the image and then remember what the title is. But in terms of really getting in and using, and this is a deck I will be able to use very much in past life readings and healing readings, and things like that. So I will use this deck. Having those titles is a lot, is wonderful. I really love them. Sorry for babbling about it. But this is the Release. So, they found their way through, I'm assuming. Let's turn the page. Some of the spirits that have been languishing have found their way into Release. This card is an expansion of spirit and asks you to look at what your soul needs to be released. What is it that you need in order to find that release, and really analyzing that. It's quite beautiful. Here we have Green Walks, which is so gorgeous. The color green is soothing and at the same time invigorating. The third path spirits find themselves free to walk. So now they've found their paths into the gardens, into a different way to the gardens, right? Than the flying, the spirit that could fly into it. They found a different path there, but they found their way into the green walks. And then we have this beautiful expression of gratitude here as they fully sort of understand, they've come through all of this and can really feel the light. And this is actually light that is emanating to her and from her, because she has experienced this full trajectory of first being lost, but now coming to this pace of being found again, which is really beautiful. I love that. Okay, so that was the third path. How many cards do we get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. So, yeah. Okay, so that's the third path. So now we have the fourth path, right, which is going to be the most difficult because these are the paths of the obdurate spirits. This is the question, this asks the question, you know, what happens to people who die not having done the work of figuring life out, having, you know, murdered people, raped people, abused people in different ways, and never found any kind of healing, any sort of path away from that. So what happens? Does it look the exact same, right? You know, what does that look like? It's got to be a question I think that we all have. Let's, to be honest, that the question of Star Wars is, what do we do with people like Hitler, right? Star Wars is that exploration of, is there redemption for somebody like Hitler or somebody like Darth Vader, right? Is there a path towards redemption? What happens? How is a Hitler or a Darth Vader made? How does that happen? Because I don't believe they're born that way. And so how does that happen? And then is there redemption there? What does that look like? What does that path look like? So this fourth path explores those difficult energies here. This reflects a hardened heart, anger, a lack of compassion, a stubbornness, somebody who, again, just hasn't done any of that work in the lifetime that they had. And so then what happens, right, when they move into the next life or into the afterlife and have to process through this. I've already stated that I do not believe in a burning fire of hell, even for people that we, you know, are considered to be very bad or even evil people. So I don't believe in a burning fire of hell. So then what happens to those people? She has the next card as being Charon. Is it pronounced Charon? I never know. You know, I learned to read that before I ever heard anybody say it, and I'm not sure how to pronounce that correctly. I just call him the ferryman. I consider the ferryman to be an important energy, right? Because he journeys you. Now, she sees this as journeying into a very dark place. I think of the ferryman as simply taking us over the river and into the other world. So I don't necessarily see that energy as being evil. That's just my own personal perspective. But yes, very disturbing, I'm sure, to meet the ferryman for sure, versus meeting this, right? So if this is the greeting in one way, and this is the greeting that you're met with in another way, I could see where that would be a little bit disturbing. But I do like this idea of somebody who's taking you on a passage that's important. It may be difficult, it may be dark, but it's an important passage. And for somebody who has moved into the next row, full of anger, full of rage, full of unresolved things, then their path is going to be difficult as they process through that. So interesting. And so then we have the Valley of Shadow here. And again, I think that we find ourselves in valleys of shadows in lifetime as well. I think all of these cards are really powerful. Hello, Scooter. We're not really taking questions right now. We're walking through a deck, so everybody can check a deck out and decide whether it's for them or not. And even if it's not, just to be able to explore what person has created. So that's really what we're doing tonight. But it's nice to see you. So here we have the Valley of Shadow. Again, really, really beautiful. You think it's pronounced like Karen. Okay, thank you. I looked it up while reading the BOD PDF book. Okay, thank you very much, Patrice. So again, Valley of Shadow, really beautiful. Here we have the Ghosts of the Past. This is really gorgeous, right? And again, this is all stuff that we all have to deal with, right? We all bump into those phases in our lives where we have our ghosts of the past that creep up. Happens to all of us. I feel like I can say I have done so much work to kind of set some ghost behind me, and all of a sudden something can pop back up again, and you're just like right there in the middle of it for a moment, and you're like, I've already done this, right? I've already dealt with this. Why is this ghost creeping back up again and having to deal with it over and over again? And so I think, again, this is a very useful card in healing work. Here we have a powerful card. This reminds me of, have you guys watched the movie? Oh, shoot. What is it called? It has, I think Robin Williams is in it. And his wife has died and is stuck in the concept of the movie, the state of your mind at death. Of course, you can get locked into being, and you make your own, basically you make your own afterlife. And so if you die in a horrible mental state, you can find yourself trapped there until you find a way out. And so I think it's Robin Williams goes into the to go and try to save her. Yes, thank you, Patrice. High five to Patrice. What Dreams May Come. Super powerful movie. Love that movie. But this reminds me, there's this point in there where there's, he's just standing on all of these, I think, skulls and bones and things. Anyway, this really powerful movie. I highly recommend it. Very interesting take on, it's difficult though. I will say there are definitely difficult topics of suicide and things like that are, and just unresolved sadness and traumas and things like that. So it's not an easy movie, but it's very, very powerful, I think, personally. But do your research if those kind of things upset you. It should upset all of us, but if it's not something you want to put yourself into, I think that's a better way to put it. Here we have the River of Oil and Blood. The spirits of the fourth path now find their path become sludgy, sinking down beneath their feet. Oops, no, I'm in the wrong one. That's the Ghost of the Path. By now, a few of these spirits may be rethinking their entire life. That takes immense resolution. Although it makes sense, threatened as they are with a situation far worse than they've encountered, this is a river of blood and oil, which can feel like you're just being stuck. This is the bottom, right? So this looks like bye Joey, get some sleep. This is the lowest point. So this also, again, think about healing, doing work for yourself on healing work. This is that rock bottom, right? This is that point in which you've just hit the bottom and there's no other way up to go but up, right? That is a powerful place that people find themselves in, and having a deck that has those types of cards in it, I think is very powerful. And from that though comes the Second Chance card. At last, the spirits are now offered another chance to view their lives more objectively. They've kind of gotten their way through this, and hopefully at this point are able to see things in another way and have a second chance of being able to see things and see how did you get to where you are, what things were your choices, what things were other people's choices, and so on and so forth. I don't think it matters terribly much, but Charon is how I've heard Charon pronounced, which makes sense. I know. And trust me, I can find the way. I think we just have to kind of find the way we're going to settle with it, because we'll find all different ways that people say is the right way. But it's Charon, that's very close. So that makes sense. Okay. So Second Chance, really beautiful. Sorry, I know this is, I was really thinking, so it's an Oracle deck, right? We can speed through this a little quicker than a tarot deck. There's only 44 cards, so this isn't going to take too long. No. No. And then we move on to recovery. After the disordered spirits have seen their truncated souls reflected in the eyes of a friend or a compassionate being, our images follow those who cannot bear to be so fractured. Knowing that they have to change, they will do what it takes to move on. So this is a card about self-forgiveness. I love this idea of being able to come, you know, face to face with somebody who loves us, somebody that loves us enough, who sees all of the shadows, all of the difficulties, all of the pains, and can reflect back to us another vision of ourselves. What a powerful experience that is. And especially for a soul like this that has gone through so much to get to this point, to be that they can't maybe necessarily see it in their own eyes, but they can see it reflected in somebody who has enough compassion to be able to show it to them. That is really beautiful. That's very powerful. And then having this breakthrough moment here of breaking through, and the spirits of the first path have been exploring the realm, and apparently they're going to break through and get reunited with the spirit souls of the second and third paths, and kind of all being able to come together. So I think that's the end of the second or fourth path. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably. I'm guessing that's the end of the fourth path. So all of the souls now are in this place of choices here. This is the choices card. And so I think that this is this idea. The souls have come a long way. They have transformed into souls that have moved well past everything we could easily understand, begun to create within the afterlife, whatever that creativity consists of. You know, we can all make our own realms, this type of idea. And then there's a choice that needs to be made. I wonder if I bet you we're going to get to, we're going to start moving towards reincarnation, right? So now there's a choice to be made. Are we going to stay for a while? Some people, I do believe, at certain times need to just stay for a while, stay their choices. Choices does not want to stay put. You know, some people need to just stay and heal for a while, for a eon or two, right? Some people are ready to get back in it at a different time. So I really, love, because I do believe that. I don't believe anybody is thrust into the next life with no choice, free will or choice. There are people who choose to get off the wheel and be bright souls that help other souls in the in-between. There are people that step back onto the wheel even though they've seen it all, like a bodhisattva who is going to come back onto the earth and have love and compassion for people who are still processing through in their physical lives. There's a lot of different ways in which this can go, and so that's a choice that has to be made there. Then there is a farewell. If you're going to choose to move forward in some way or another, we have that bidding farewell to their groups in the afterlife. That they may end up reincarnating with some of those, but some of their groups, some of that soul group that they have are still there doing other things. And so there's a moment of farewell. Sorry, I'm trying to speed us up here. We have the new soul that's here. Here we see the blossoming of a new soul. And this is really, for the interpretation she has, do you have a vision of what you were put on earth to do? Unfortunately, many people seem to have no idea and drift through life as a rudderless boat. Few of us will completely have, okay. Speech is just devolving. Let me try this again. Few of us will have completely lost touch with our deepest selves. Some children up to the age of 6 or 7 often have almost total recall of previous lives. I have a lot of past life memories as an adult, but I definitely did as a younger person, and maybe that's why I always believed in it, even though I was never taught it. I don't know. The emphasis at school on logic and left brain thinking tends to overlay those memories, but nothing is ever completely forgotten. I do believe that children are taught to not remember. I do believe that children are taught not to see the fae and see other worlds and other dimensions. I do think we've reduced, unfortunately, in most of our societies right now. We really restrict the minds of children, which is really sad, and ends up with human beings like we have a world full of right now. Okay, moving on, moving on. New birth, or the new soul, the soul and the spirit is kind of going back and choosing, made the choice to go back. And so, of course, we have the reincarnation card that is here. And here, which I love having as well. Karen says, in Greek mythology, there is a Chiron or Chiron or Karen who rows the boat across the river to the underworld. Yes. And Chiron, who is a centaur. Yes. That I see is different than the ferryman. I just call him the ferryman. So Chiron to me is something separate than the river, the ferryman who guides us across the river Styx. Okay, reincarnation card. We are in the reincarnation. What does this one do? So then we go into the heart's flame. The one place all paths have led to is that of the heart, a deep love that is never romantic or unrealistic, but arises in and always transforms the soul. The image shows two golden flames held within a larger white and rose-colored flame, the heart's energy, everlasting, crystal clear, and beautiful. We on earth can only imagine that clarity, though we might wish our loved ones here on earth could be that transparent. There are, of course, a few miraculous humans who seem to reach this state while still alive. The rest of us have a more difficult time trying to learn our life's lessons first. This is really seeing and coming from a complete place of the heart that is, of course, very, very difficult. Here we have the group soul card that we talked about. This is about communion. This is the understanding of souls that, again, cross many lifetimes together. In terms of doing this in a reading, it could be about community, that strong, supportive community that we might have. So this is beautiful. Look at the rainbow bridge. Bridges are important symbols. They allow us to move from one state to another, from where we are now to somewhere else. They symbolize both separation and union, inner and outer, higher and lower. Although in these realms, the difference of one of mystery and discernment. The bridge is the passage to the highest mystery, cosmic consciousness itself. So that's the bridge. When the souls reach those higher levels, that nothing much needs to be done, but in the afterlife, each step takes the souls further up and further into awareness. And here they have reached what I am calling the rainbow bridge, which allows them to pass over into the highest levels in the very center of creation itself. So at this point, the cards that we're going to be looking at are speaking of moving into the afterlife. Again, whatever that might look like to you, if that is heaven, if that is Valhalla, if that is the, halls of Freya, if that is, I can't think of any afterlives, if that is Nirvana, if that, whatever that might look like to the way in which you see the afterlife being. You've kind of done the work, you've gone through all that, you're stepping off the wheel entirely and continuing now to move up into another place. So there we have the rainbow bridge, which leads to the higher realms. This is, of course, a movement up and out, resonating through every cell of your body. This is Rishi connects very strongly with music and light, moving through here and into the crystal city. Again, I really like, as with the greetings, as with any of the forms that are spirits, it's very vague forms. There's nothing that ties you to one particular ideology or another. It doesn't have to be, it could be heaven with streets of gold. It could be entering into a hall full of your warrior maidens or whatsoever, right? It's kind of clear for you to put your understanding of what that might be on there, which is really beautiful. But this is about being completely resonating with the energy that is around you in the crystal city. And then you continue to go upward into the cherubim. These massive beings bear little resemblance to the soft saccharine angels beloved of the new age. This is an energy being. So this is, and you see this in Brian Froud's decks. He has these energetic beings that are, sort of beyond form and are just pure light and pure sound and pure uh he's pure, just pure energies there, and so you can look at them as being angelic beings, whatever you might call them. I do think that I love how she approaches these, because again, it is just that primal pure energetic form in whatever shape that you might want to call it. It's just powerful, absolutely beautiful. Here we have the Elysium Light. I love the name of this. The image shows the light. This is how I see source and spirit. It's just pure light at the center like this. So I love this painting, because this is, we're really getting to the source, to spirit, to what it is that is all within all of the universe, which we just don't know what that is. And so having that as sort of pure light here, I think is amazing. And then coming into the center of that light, the last card is the inmost center. The souls have reached ultimate reality and can now rest complete, restored within the creative energy of the cosmic whole. They are utterly at peace and simultaneously part of the ceaseless creativity that is part of infinite creation. They are also aware of the part they play within the being of the cosmic creator, particles within the universal energy. We simply have no way of describing or ever comprehending the unity of which they are now a part. That is quite beautiful. Wow, what a journey, right? Oh my goodness, what a journey. I'm going to say, this is okay, so I'm going to zoom out because I've got some piles here. I'm going to say this. Okay. I'm going to zoom back out again. I just get my pile set. Let me zoom out here. And Miss Jamie, you do whatever you need to do. On all that, I trust you. Now we're like way too bright. I don't know what's going on with light. Once I shuffle, I will. let me give this a shot. That was amazing. I have to say, when you have I have Shimmering Veil Tarot. Love this deck so much. I love Devas of Creation. I love multidimensional Devas. So I love all of the decks that I work with, but this one is just, for me, it's just it just hits it all. It hits all those spots. I think it's so important. Again, it really goes with things that I work a lot with, such as healing and things of restoration, liminal spaces, reincarnation, and working with the patterns that we're trying to work our way through over multiple lifetimes. It has all of the difficulties and the shadows and the energies that we all have to go through on personal paths and our ancestral paths and our past lives paths and then our soul's path into the center. So it just, I think, is an important deck if that's the kind of thing that really draws you to readings and things like that. I find it very kind of a goosebumpy power here. So what we basically have is where it starts with death and the spirit rising, and we have this passageway. It then splits into 4 paths. Again, this is the easiest path of the most of innocence and purity of spirit that are passing over. We have the second path, in which probably most of us are the average person probably is dealing with. You have the third path, where there is some lost factor here, or really being tied to fears, people that may have had a lot of trauma in their lifetime, and so are stuck in states of fear and limbo states. And then you have the fourth path, which is the difficult one of people who maybe didn't experience a lot of trauma, but were giving a lot of trauma. However, I would argue those are people who probably experienced a lot of trauma and then also then ended up doing a lot of trauma and doing a lot of horrible things. And so there's so much work then that needs to be done in that space. It makes a lot of sense, right? Just common sense thinking, right? And then we have this sort of this choice back into when we're ready, going back into the cycle all over again in terms of reincarnating back in. And then that choice that comes when we're completely moving off the wheel, not even staying to help other souls or to just stay in those spaces. You know, this could be eons in terms of time, right? When we're ready to return back to the very source and enter into those higher realms. So in many ways, this is, you know, another path, but it's that sort of final path into the highest spaces. So that's what we've got going on here. That's a lot. That's a lot. I'm sorry. Hats off. That's a lot of deep energy to dive into, to try to create, to try to tap into, to try to sit with, to paint with. That's a lot. Really beautiful. All right, let's give it a oh, shuffles. Oops, I messed that up, but that makes a nice shuffle. I have to say this. Do as I say, not as I do, or do at your own risk. You should not technically riffle shuffle gilded edges. They will get used looking. I don't care. I'm okay with that. I like good decks. The gilding will age well, and I'm fine with that. I like a good shuffle. But be aware, if you have gilded edges and you want to keep them intact as long as possible, you probably shouldn't do this. So I just like to say that. Please don't send me hate messages. Patrick says the deck is so clear and powerful for not only ancestral work, healing work, a way to pause in our own personal life being lived. Exactly. I see very strong applications in our current lifespan, in our ancestral lifespan. We have a lot of ancestral trauma and things to work through. I see it being very useful in, again, the long journey of the soul. So I can see a lot of uses from this as well. Again, similar to Cosmovisions, where it functions very well as a past life, but it's just great for transitional healing work. So absolutely beautiful. And shuffles wonderful. Perfect cardstock. I mean, for me, the perfect cardstock is peak linen playing cardstock, like elite premium linen cardstock. Playing cardstock is like my perfect cardstock. This would be my second to perfect cardstock. It's matte, it's smooth, it's not sticky, it ripples, it gets a good shuffle overhand. Yeah, I am a fan. How would I see myself using this? So that's what I'm just thinking. I'm teaching an Oracle class right now. So obviously all my thoughts are on kind of processing how I use different things. I don't know that I would necessarily use this to pull a single card because I'm not sure. I think it would depend on your intention because there's a lot of shadow. Maybe that's another thing that I would want to do is to look at what that ends up being the overall balance of the deck is, just in broad strokes of how much shadow's there. Because if you're just this would not be a deck that I would say that you would pull a single card to sort of, give you sort of an affirmative energy through the day, because you could get a card like Fears or, some of the other darker cards. They aren't really meant to be cards that help you to have a positive day, right? I think this really is a deck in which you're going into it with specific understandings of dealing with recovery in some way, or dealing with, making movement forward, just sitting down and contemplating, maybe in conjunction with energies that are going to aid you, right? So I could see myself doing this in a healing work, but then having another component that would go along with it, whether that would be an animal energy that's going to walk the path with me in whatever that shows up, or in ancestral space with having ancestral energy that is going to walk with me as we manifest the whatever message that we might get there, right? So I don't see this as a pull one card and get, you know, an affirmation for the day. You might get that, but you also could put yourself in a place of having to like start to think about past fears and past wounds and feelings of feeling stuck or feeling at rock bottom. And it may not be something that you want to carry with you as you go off to work and have to work for 8 hours, right? I would say this is about intentionality of sitting down and working with this in a space of contemplation of your path forward, of what healing that still needs to be done, or those types of things. And as I said, she gives a lot of actual readings in the back where she kind of gives us an idea. You know, this one is a reading of a client who wanted to know how reincarnation worked. One was asking about her mother and drew the ghosts of the past, the river of oil and blood, and the ghosts and lost cards. That brought up a lot of darkness and shadow that need to be worked with. Some reincarnation questions. A client took a while to gain courage to ask about her mother because she was, you know, maybe with a mother that wasn't the mother that we would all want, that was in fact unloving and hurtful, and then dealing with those issues, right? This to me feels like that kind of deck. It's not the kind of deck that we kind of, you know, check in on the weather, so to speak, but intentionally sit with for those you know, movements through healing, movements through trauma, movements you know, that takes contemplation, mindfulness, and setting yourself in a place to be able to sit with those things and have the support energetically that you need to do those things. That's my opinion. I think this is a powerful deck. It feels like that. Again, I will touch bases with you. I am most definitely going to be reading with this. I could also see this in conjunction. Again, I do a lot of past life readings. So in conjunction of really thinking about, okay, what is the work that maybe, you know, I could see pulling my brain's just running in circles of ways to utilize that. But I could see sort of, you know, maybe an energy of something that needs to sit with for a while before there was that shift into the current life, maybe an energy of something that a lesson that was learned, and then maybe like, okay, what am I supposed to be moving towards in this lifetime? I could see adding that into, again, what I already do with past life readings as sort of a deeper exploration of the soul's journey through those lifetimes. I could see that be very powerful for that as well. Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, it's just my brain's like firing through, but I do think it's quite powerful, and I wouldn't be pulling it to see whether or not I should take a job or something like that. I don't know that it would be necessarily helpful, but let's just pull a card, see what we get. Oh, there we go. See, we got Karen or Chiron, or I'm giving up. The ferryman. So let's just read what the ferryman's passage is for interpretations. So drawing the ferryman might stop your breathing for a while. The journey he offers is not one you would choose, but here, still in body, if not in spirit, you might choose to see this as a wake-up call, right? This is a time that, to me, so that's what we have here. But for me, this would be a call to adventure in the sense of a deep adventure. This is a call to go into the underworld, to be willing to face those shadows, to be able to not just kind of shove all of that stuff away into an other world, into a hell, into, you know, this negative space, but to go there and do the work of pulling that energy up and outward into the light and being able to start to process this. So I would see this as a call to say, come, you know, come with me, pay your coin and come, let's do the work that needs to be done. I actually find this to be quite a powerful card. I don't feel anything negative about this card. I think it says there's a difficult journey ahead, but the payoff in the end is going to be worth the difficult journey. So it's sort of like, you know, at the end of this look at this deck, it's like, okay, are you willing? Are you willing or interested in coming to this journey here with me in this? If you purchase this deck, you'll be willing to take a journey into the underworld. Yeah, that's kind of how I see it, Mr. Patrick. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm breaking up or not. Am I breaking up? Are my lips cracking? I'm getting a little signal, and it shouldn't be. Oh, wait, let me see what the final pull was over here. Have you jumped a fly? Okay, end pull. Oops, end pull. Okay, I saw this pop up, and it shouldn't be because I'm not on wireless. It kind of popped up like it had shifted to wireless. I might have to check my connection. Now it should be back. It's not showing that, but for a minute it should. Remember that one time when I just couldn't even do a walkthrough? It was looking like it was going in that direction. Let me see if we can see the final poll. So 37 people voted of whether or not they've jumped to flying, not flyer, sorry. 64% yes, no. I feel bad, truthfully. I feel very sad for people who say no, because I feel like everybody should have an opportunity to fly in their dreams. It's an absolutely amazing thing. You can work towards it. You can do the work of learning to fly in dreams. First, you need to work on learning to lucid dream, and then you can start to learn to be aware and then use that awareness to fly. But that's a lot of work, but you can do it. Just saying, just throwing that out there. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up so that it stays concise as 2 hours can be. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I was really looking forward to checking out this deck. I didn't want to wait for a time that I could do it and edit it and everything. And so I really appreciate everybody hanging out with me while we looked at it. I am not at all disappointed. I'm really on cloud 9 about it. I think it's going to be very, very powerful, and I'm excited, but I will come back after using it to show you how it goes. I feel like I've used enough of her decks to know I'm going to work well with them, but I think this has got a little extra behind it in some way, because it aligns with so much of what I could see myself using it with. So that gives it that extra power hit there. So I hope you guys all have a great night. I am going to end this video, and I'm going to start another live video for those of us who like to play with paper and just chit chat and kind of zone down from the heavy parts of things. So if you want to chit chat a little more lightly while I set up my planning for the next week, you're welcome to join in. I was trying for an hour of this and an hour of that, but clearly this was a deck that needed a little more time. So have an absolute wonderful rest of your week, those of you who are moving forward.